This afternoon's tactical enhancement is Asahi and screaming primary school children. This afternoon we're playing Victory at Sea. A bit shy of 1,000 points because we couldn't fill up the last 20 or 30 points. And this time I've got the US against the Germans. Talk us through what you've got.
So at the top, so we have Bismarck, clocking in at 450 points.
Lovely.
Then we have a heavy cruiser, a Deutschland class cruiser. And today it is the Kreigsmarine. So that clocks in at 280 points. And then we have 4 destroyers, the 1936A class destroyers. They're 60 points each.
Yeah, there's brutal destroyers with more than 2.5 times the hull points of my 60-point destroyers. Up against those we have the New Mexico. 3 destroyers which date back to 1919 apparently. And 3 cruisers. So aside from my cruisers, a lot of my fleet is very old. Whereas the Germans, of course, is all very new. So this will be interesting to see how the old bruisers go against the newfangled stuff. On that note, we're going to do some recce. So let's roll for recce. I've got, what do I have? 16 odd planes. I don't think I gave myself enough dice.
Well,
yeah, the Americans do like their aircraft. We got aircraft 4, aircraft 4, where's the other one? Aircraft 4, crazy number of aircraft in the American fleet.
I get 6 dice.
Well,
I have a total of 6 aircraft.
I just rolled this fistful the other moment ago, playing around, and got a grand total of 3. So you get 3. And I get, what do I get? 1, 2, 3... 1, 2, 3, yeah, out of all that crap, I rolled 10 more dice than you and we got exactly the same.
That's unbelievable.
Well, let's hope that's not a sign of things to come. We'll move on to deployment. Just to add insult to injury, as you said, roll it again just to see what theoretically you could get. And I got 10, no, 11. You're not going to let me use all of those, but that's what should have, well, no, that's not what should have happened. I should have got that 5. Right, we're deployed, and a little bit of cat and mouse, so trying to split the fleets. I've ended up with 1 cruiser and a destroyer over here. Wasn't sure what was happening over here, but Andrew ended up putting only 2 destroyers there. He put the bulk of his fleet over here, and I matched it over here. I put down my battleship last to make sure that he got somewhere near a target worth his attention. I'm sure Andrew's thinking of as well. Any thoughts on deployment?
Right, yeah, the idea was to try and split your fleet.
Yep.
The main thing was the cruiser. It was either going to go behind this island or this island.
Right, these islands, right?
Yeah, just to try and use it as cover.
Yes,
but I don't think that's going to work. I don't think I'm going to be able to hide it, no matter what I do, unless I use the old destroyer smokescreen trick.
Well, I use that extensively.
Yeah, which I might end up doing, just to try and get it close enough to actually do anything. Or I can just sit back and just pound with heavy guns. So
yeah, it's an interesting observation. Both the German fleet and the Italian fleet, which are the ones I mainly fight against, have both got very modern long-range guns. Whereas the Americans got a bit of a mixture on that front. Depends which ship you take, but I've taken the old stuff today because the new stuff weighs in at 850 points for 1 ship. The British stuff has got a hodgepodge of old and new as well. So I tend to be outranged, which means you basically spend a lot of time dropping smoke screens with fast moving destroyers to hopefully get close before the shit hits the fan.
Well, the thing is, these heavy crews, they got torpedoes as well, which I'm obviously paying points for, but
yes,
I don't want to get close. I want to stay at range and just pound with a heavy gun. So
see, I really like cruisers in two of the armies. One's Japanese because long range torpedoes, they do what they do.
Yeah, we all know what they do, yeah.
And the American cruisers, because they're dirt cheap, you basically get 2 of them for the price of one of the fancy German pocket battleships,
yeah,
or for the price of Japanese
cruisers, yeah.
But yeah, you know, I've said before, cruisers exist for logistical reasons that are not well reflected in the game, unless you're playing a scenario specifically for cruisers. On that note, I think we should roll a d10 and see who gets to go first.
Not me.
Oh, wow.
It was actually pretty close.
On that note, feel free to move your ship. Turn one. I won the initiative. Basically, we're steaming toward each other. I got a few shots off from the Chester at whatever the hell that, the Gaffspray or whatever it is over there, the cruiser. It's not as tough as I thought it was. In reply, Gaffspray missed completely, but the Bismarck opened up, fired at Chester, because it's the only one that was not in the smoke. I basically used the smoke to conceal my ships against the superior long-range firepower the Germans have until I get up close. And the rounds on Chester did a few points of damage, but I think it was 6 points of damage. Then it landed a 10, a critical, jammed the rudder, so that thing is going forwards and only forwards for the rest of the game, and took another 2 points of damage. So Andrew described that as suicidal, but I'm thinking, well, the rest of the fleet's going in that direction. It's probably no worse than anyone else's prospects right now. On that note, let's do initiative for turn 2. Oh, bugger. All right, I'll have to move first. Turn 2. It's only turn 2, but it's on for young and old already. The smoke screen trick, moving very fast with the destroyer, is working okay here. I stuffed up my smoke screens over here and thought I might even get a broadside in with this chap, because I need to dump some fire in return, so I'm just getting picked off at the moment. Completely failed to put my smoke screen in the right place for either my battleship or my other cruiser. As a result, Bismarck smashed Houston in a very serious sort of way. He's now crippled, although weirdly his guns are all working. When I rolled the dice for that, I actually rolled it the wrong way. Then Andrew pointed out that they actually are working, so thank you very much. Well, the children are making the sound effects for what the crew are saying on the Houston. A few other rounds happened, and a few went on to Chester. But in return, we dumped a lot of fire onto, what was that, Gaffspray?
I'm so bored.
The Gaffspray there, including the New Mexico, which is really just because the difference in range band between extreme and long range was right in between the two ships. So I thought I'd go for the one that got a better chance of actually hitting. And that Deutschland class cruiser is only 4 points. It's only 4 points off a cripple.
I give up. Gonna do what they're gonna do.
His weapons are suffering, its crew have got a fire he's got to try and put out. So it's not all one way. It's looking pretty bad there for a bit because my two cruisers are getting smashed. But with that Deutschland suffering, yeah, the game's on for young and old. Now let's roll for... Alright, we're in the repair phase. I mostly want to see what happens for, I'll do mine in a minute, but I want to see what happens for that Deutschland class cruiser. Hock 1 dice, you need a 5 or a 6 to get an effect.
All right.
Oh, dearie me, it's still burning. So we'll count that. Do we do that now, or do we do it at the start of the next turn?
I have no idea, we'll have to look it up.
Alright, but the crew is going up one anyway. No, let's roll for initiative. Oh, excellent. I get to shoot first next time. We're interrupting proceedings during the middle of turn 3 because New Mexico just got a shot at Bismarck at long range instead of extreme. And that's the hits. 70 of these motherfuckers are 6s. We'll find out in a minute how many of them are actually cripples or criticals. Alright, turn 3 was a hot one, and turn 4 is going to be a crazy too. Let's see, Andrew laid down a smoke screen to protect Gaffspray. I got the initiative and I dumped New Mexico on Bismarck and rolled up a flurry of criticals.
I've got to put on these repairs as well.
Oh yes, let's see how that goes. Oh, great. You might want to use the damage repair special order next turn.
Why for Bismarck?
Well, it's up to you. He's got 5 criticals all up. When we take into account the different levels that each critical does. What else happened? So Andrew maneuvered deftly between my destroyers over there, and I tried to repeat the same trick here. We seem to have had similar fates for our destroyers. There's this close quarter exchange of torpedoes that fucked things up. Although interestingly, the Americans managed to land 2 torpedoes on this thing, using 6s, and then rolled 3 damage points in total.
Sorry?
Well, I fired 2 torpedoes at the thing and actually hit.
Yeah.
And actually I fired 6 torpedoes, 2 of them hit.
Yeah, and did 4 points of damage.
4 points of damage.
Which is unbelievable.
And none of it's not critical, of course. That's totally workable. This guy laid down a lot of fire and damaged some ships here. Now, Northampton is crippled, but all of its main guns are still working, so it dumped some damage on Bismarck.
No, he shot at the destroyer, remember?
Oh, that's right, shot at the destroyer.
And blew away destroyer, like, long range.
Fucked him good and proper with another good flurry of dice. Now Andrew toasted the Chester, finished him off, so he's gone. In this exchange here, Andrew's torpedoes went all over the place and didn't hit anything, whereas we managed to get torpedoes on that destroyer and just nuked the hell out of it, which is satisfying because over here, after I'd actually managed to land some hits and do some damage, and they rolled woefully small amount of points, this destroyer here did massive amounts of things, including a 6 on the critical chart for engines, so it was ultimately blown apart by a massive fuel explosion.
Yep, 21 points of damage on a 3-point destroyer. That's just...
We need more cotton wool, Andrew. That was horrid.
So yeah, this game has devolved into a torpedo fest at close range.
Well, it has, although I've actually still got most of my torpedoes over here, but they won't be able to find a target before the end of the game, I suspect. Yeah. Not that my torpedoes are reliable anyway. So yes, there's a bit of damage on Bismarck. Gas speed is only a couple of points off of being crippled.
No, he's crippled, he's about to die.
That's about, well, it's still there at the end of this turn, I'll be very annoyed. Otherwise, it's time to roll for initiative. Oh, lovely. That's what I needed. Excellent. All right, 10 versus 7. We'll check in at the end of turn 4. End of turn 4, and we are calling it. The reasons why. Let's have a look. Well, we finished off. Basically, Andrew tried to escape with his fleet, blowing smoke behind him, while his last 2 destroyers closed in to try and finish off the Portland. What the hell did we do? I fired this chap first, the Northampton cruiser, because even though it's crippled, it's still got all those main guns, and it made it lethal for 2 more turns than it should have been. And that was enough to polish off this chap. With some actually pretty lucky dice rolls as well. I've been continuing to roll up a storm. We did put some rounds on the Bismarck at extreme range. It didn't do an awful lot to it. My destroyers didn't do anything in the end. They had no targets. Bismarck fired back and did dump a few rounds of damage, and actually got a critical on the engines on New Mexico, but it's too little too late. Over here, what the hell happened over here?
Fired his light guns, got a critical, rolled a 10, then rolled a 5, and did 46 worth of damage to it, which put a critical hit on every single location. That's
right. So the Portland's actually a herding puppy. One of those destroyers, because the German destroyers, they're pocket cruisers really. Their guns are not weak. So when Andrew rolled up a 3 shots, one of them did damage, did a critical, got a 10 on the critical chart, rolled a 5 on that, and I'm thinking, oh my god, he's going to blow away a Portland with 1 volley from a destroyer. Then he rolled 2s on all of his 46.
Yes, 8 points of damage.
So by some miracle, the Portland's there and not even crippled actually, well, it's not far off.
Yeah.
And the Portland rattled off all of his gunnery, and I think I finished off that last destroyer there.
Yeah.
With main guns, and that was about it. The light guns didn't do shit. So it was rather a spectacular day. I have to say, the dice favoured me rather heavily this time. Normally I'm griping because the dice don't work for me, but today they work for me very, very well. So I'm down by a cruiser, 1 cruiser damage, 1 crippled. And I've lost 1 destroyer. Andrew's lost 3 destroyers. And
the heavy cruiser.
Gasperi, yeah. So I don't know what that is in points, because I think I've lost 130 odd point cruiser and 60 point destroyer. So I'm up by, yeah, a few points, yeah. All right, well, that was an exciting battle. I know Andrew got me good and proper last time, but what have we learned?
I think as soon as battleships show up, cruisers just start dying.
Yep.
On both sides. So I think at some stage we should either limit battleships or take into account that battleships are going to be on the table, and maybe even just leave the cruisers at home and take other stuff. It's too easy just to knock out cruisers with battleships.
I have noticed that Emilio tends to take 2 battleships.
And just destroyers, yeah.
Yeah.
And leaves all the cruisers at home. So I'm thinking if we're going to take cruisers, let's just leave the big capital ships at home and just have like cruiser and destroyer and maybe have a carrier. But I think battleships we should probably leave to like the 2,000 point games or the 3,000 point games where they...
I think there's something to be said for that. If one guy's got a battleship and the other guy brings a carrier, basically if only one person has air, that is actually a massive offset to the effectiveness of a battleship, particularly if you start coughing up smoke all over the place with your lighter ships. But it forces you to sort of react in a certain way. But in these big gun battleship face-offs, yeah, the cruisers have a rough time of it.
Yeah, I think if we'd spent those points on cruisers instead of battleships, I think it would have been a more interesting game rather than the battleships because pretty much our battleships just fired at our cruisers most of the time.
That's true. You fucked up one, crippled another. The destroyers did most of the damage to each other. I think really the only exception was this one that was blowing smoke. I got that. Oh, and this guy, I knocked the last couple of points off of him with a...
Yeah, he'd already taken the torpedo hit, so he's pretty much gone.
Yeah, that's right. So I think there's something to be said about taking carrier, cruiser and destroyer fleets. I think that'd be a very interesting mix.
I think it'd be a much more fun game.
And part of the reason we didn't do that is that this is only the second game Andrew's had in several months, so we're keeping it simple. But I think there's enough battleship learning curve. We'll do something more interesting next time.
Yeah, we know what battleships do. Gotta get myself some more cruisers. And I've got a stack of more American cruisers there, so...
Well, yeah, because Andrew's got the American cruisers from the starter box, whereas I took the Japanese from the starter box. So I have to think about what to do with that. And look, the only reason that we didn't have a bigger cruiser fight today is because I brought the Americans. Or even the British. I've already only got 3 cruisers, and my cruisers are a lot cheaper than Andrew's cruisers.
Yeah, I've got to buy some normal cruisers. The Germans do have quite a few cruisers. I had a look at the website and there's heaps of cruisers, so I'm not sure why I said last time they didn't have many. They do actually have quite a few.
I think they got 9 big cruisers and a bunch of light ones as well.
Yeah, so maybe get some light cruisers.
And they had about 40 odd destroyers through the course of the war.
That's good to know.
Yeah, and these destroyers are, I mean, I know I blew up quite a few of them, but these things are a horror show. So I did make them a target priority. And the good thing with the Yanks as compared to the Brits is that the Americans have got a lot of guns, and because their cruisers are cheap, you get more cruisers for your money than the British.
Oh, you get 2 cruisers for every one of my heavy cruisers.
That's right. So I'm getting 18 dice against your 6.
Yeah.
And your dice will fuck up, your guns and your heavy cruisers will fuck up whatever they hit. But 18 dice is 18 dice.
Yeah, you start running out of hit points pretty quickly.
And I was testing a theory with this because I haven't done a lot of shooting at destroyers with cruisers before. And with the British, they've got tricks up the sleeve like fast track, they're not complete crap. But they've also got torpedoes that don't do a lot. So I was wondering if I could fend off Andrew's cruisers, what do they call them? Destroyer flotillas.
Well, there's only 4 of them in this game. Normally I'm fielding 6 of them.
Yeah, and I remember one of our earlier games, they really ruined my day.
Oh, they pretty much sank the British fleet all on their own.
Yeah.
I mean, the Bismarck sailed high, but there was not much left alive by that stage. And that's when I started to think about, well, let's take more cruisers and destroyers rather than battleships. Because you're right, the American cruisers are actually really good at gunning down destroyers.
Yeah, you just got to get in close, and when you get in close, it's dangerous, and you be careful with your manoeuvre. Like in this turn, I think I only moved this guy about 2 or 3 inches because I wanted to stay out of the port arc of this destroyer here, which Andrew had to move before I moved my cruiser.
Yeah, and that came down to a dice roll for initiative. So
that's right.
You pretty much got the initiative every turn.
3 out of 4. Yeah.
Yeah, but this turn you really needed that initiative.
Yeah, that was the difference between losing another cruiser or not, basically.
And that would have turned into a tie. So yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. So yeah, I mean, look, dice always feature. If you've seen some of my recent games of Warhammer, you'll hear me griping insanely about the horrible things that my dice did to me, in addition to what Sean did to me last game.
Oh, you should hear about this black powder game I had a couple of weeks ago.
Oh my god.
That was hilarious.
What side were you on? The
Austrians.
That's
Basically
right.
spent 2 hours of the game doing nothing but moving up, and the second they got into close combat, they all broke and ran away.
Yeah, and that was like 4 massive units.
Or 2.
Oh, 2 double-sized units.
Yep. I rolled double 2s, then double 1s for their break test, and basically half my army just ran.
I'm surprised you still played Black Powder, given I think the first time you played Black Powder, you rolled up some catastrophic miscommunication with orders and half your army fucked off the back
entire
line.
cavalry wing.
Right on the first turn.
Yeah. Oh, look at, yeah. Black Powder, you're rolling a small number of dice that have a huge impact on the game, so it can be bad. So, but you just roll with it, don't you?
Yeah, you do need to remember there's a game of toy soldiers.
But yeah, next time we'll play a different sailing game.
That's right. Next time I remember to ride the ships which are not self-propelled.
Bring the right fleet next time.
All right. Well, on that note, there was a couple of learning curves there. I mean, the American gunnery actually working, and a couple of other odds and ends. On that note, thanks for watching. Feel free to hit like, subscribe, tell your mates, and time to call it a day.